Welcome to This Explainer. Usually when a cybersecurity expert gets wrongfully imprisoned, they eventually write a memoir, or maybe they give a TED Talk. But Alberto Daniel Hill, he did something entirely different. He built a massive cyberpunk musical universe. Today, we're diving deep into the Cybermidnight Club, which is the creative platform of this Uruguayan digital dissident. He didn't just document his trauma, he completely converted it into an expansive multi-genre discography, basically turning his lived experience into this radical sonic footprint.
Picture this. You're locked away in a concrete cell, your entire digital life has been erased, and the only evidence against you is a fabricated 8 gigas of Nava, literally 8 gigs of absolutely nothing. This visceral quote perfectly captures the raw defiance of Hill's work. He was actually the first hacker ever imprisoned in Uruguay, entirely stripped of his freedom and his name. So he just refused to let the system silence him. This isn't just music, folks. It's an auditory jailbreak. It's the sound of a man clawing his way back to rewrite his own narrative through pure data and rhythm. And when you look at the sheer scale of the Cybermidnight Club discography, titles like Data Over Drama and Radical Transparency immediately jump out. This isn't just some casual hobby for him. This is a sprawling, tangible digital footprint of survival. Hill leverages AI tools, like Suno, to rapidly compose and iterate, turning his forensic investigations and vulnerability reports into what is essentially a high-volume emotional exhaust pipe. The music acts like a secure ledger, chronically documenting his fight against a corrupt system, track by track. So, to truly decode his art, we have to look at how he invented the cybercumbia genre. It's this brilliant, chaotic collision of sound. What he does is he takes the massive, traditional cumbia rhythms of his native Uruguay and splices them right together with glitchy, cyberpunk electronics. Then he layers in these wild 80s interpolations. Imagine the haunting melodies of Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time, or the driving beat of Fame, but corrupted by digital distortion and massive stadium rock guitars. It mimics the high-stakes chaos of a system crash, where organic, human emotion violently collides with cold digital machinery. Okay, let's move into Section 1, Anatomy of a Masterpiece. The track Summer of Love, My Life in Binary is an absolute masterclass in artistic license. In reality, on June 12, 2010, which was the first Saturday of the World Cup, he just had this quiet encounter in a Montevideo apartment. He was literally just watching TV with a woman named Evelyn and a pot of cactus. But sonically, he completely morphs this memory. He strips away the quiet apartment and places them under the blinding, mythic lights of a South African stadium. He blends this hyper-dramatized romance with the roar of the World Cup crowd and echoes of Frank Sinatra's Strangers in the Night, heightening the emotion to totally amplify the symbolic weight of that weekend. Now, the number 3.3 million is a huge statistical anchor in his work. Uruguay is a nation of just 3.3 million people, yet in 2010, they incredibly smashed their way into the World Cup semifinals. Hill mirrors the absurd unlikelihood of a tiny nation making that run with his own impossible personal resurrection. I mean, the odds of surviving a concrete cell to become a global cybersecurity voice are astronomically low. He uses music to calculate and compress these two statistical miracles into one cohesive narrative of survival against all odds. Deep within the soundscape of Summer of Love, the track violently contrasts extreme joy with grim reality. He literally samples the unhinged, screaming joy of a Uruguayan sports commentator reacting to Sebastian Abreu's famous ice-cold Panenka penalty kick against Ghana. But listen to how he uses it. He drops that audio of national euphoria right on top of the crushing industrial weight of his wrongful imprisonment, the fabricated 8 gigas de nada. He is weaponizing the ecstatic joy of the World Cup as a sonic shield against the terrifying silence of a prison cell. Then there's his brilliant cover of Bella Ciao, subtitled The Digital Dissident, where he fundamentally rewrites the DNA of the classic Italian resistance anthem. He twists the lyrics to chronicle his own Interpol raid, the aggressive seizure of his devices, and the forensic theater used by the state to lock him away. The music itself becomes an asymmetric digital defense. When he sings, "I built the firewall of truth and data," he is programming his own resilience, making absolutely sure that what he calls the state's protocol of silence finally falls. Which brings us to Section 2, the proof of love. This is where Hill takes heavy cryptographic principles and points them directly at the human heart. In the crypto world, proof of work demands massive computational energy to validate a block on the chain, right? Well, Hill's proof of love protocol argues that in our modern era of cheap, frictionless digital likes, real human connection requires the applied inconvenience of surviving heavy shared trauma together. The intense emotional expenditure, the sheer vulnerability required to weather a storm like false imprisonment, that is the cryptographic validation of an authentic relationship.
And the physical origin of this complex cryptographic philosophy? You wouldn't believe it. It's a resilient greenhouse plant named Walter. Walter the cactus, from that 2010 apartment meeting, was the living genesis block of this relationship's emotional chain. Yet, in a twist of pure bureaucratic absurdity during his 2017 arrest, the police literally confiscated this potted plant as supposed evidence right alongside a Guy Fawkes mask. It's this moment of dark, surreal humor that perfectly underscores the waking nightmare of his ordeal and the heavy toll required in his proof of love protocol.
All right, let's zoom out a bit for Section 3, a discography of defiance. When you look at his released singles and EPs on Apple Music from a bird's eye view, the sheer volume is staggering. This prolific output represents chronic, high-volume survival. Every single track, from The Flapwings to Dangerous Drama, is a piece of forensic intelligence, a vulnerability report, or a personal battle baked directly into the audio file. He is writing his legacy in a relentless, unstoppable stream of binary code and melody.
And his visual aesthetic is just as deliberate as his sonic one. He heavily utilizes the stark Uruguayan celeste blue, contrasting it against glowing binary rain and gritty cyberpunk motifs. Whether it's keys encased in conceptual glass for the radical transparency cover, or the corrupted, vibrant imagery of narco-influencers, he is meticulously art-directing a highly detailed digital universe. Every single piece of cover art is a window into a world where digital justice, deep trauma, and cybercumbia intersect. If you map it out, his life now mirrors a massive system update rollout. Version 1 was the 2010 World Cup magic and the genesis block of his relationship. Then, the system violently crashed between 2014 and 2017 when his ethical vulnerability reporting led to a wrongful arrest. In 2022, he patched the system by formally activating his proof of love protocol. And now, moving toward 2026, he is executing the final code, the full radical transparency album. He completely hacked the oppressive silence imposed by the state and turned it into an unstoppable wave of chronological truth. So we've seen how Alberto Daniel Hill took the ultimate betrayals, a concrete cell, a confiscated cactus, and a fabricated case built on 8 gigas de nada, and weaponized them into a towering, defiant musical universe. He hacked his own tragedy to ensure he wouldn't just be a statistic. And honestly, it leaves us with a really critical question. If he can build all of this from nothing, what kind of digital legacy are you building with the truths you possess? Thank you for exploring the Cyber Midnight Club with me.